Next up, we're going to take a break from the components side of things to talk about the grid system. So we still have more components like form components and inputs. We need to talk about nav bars, but the grid is a nice distraction. It's easy, but it's also really, really useful. So I'm just throwing it in here instead of waiting until the end. So the grid system helps us lay out our content on a web page when we're using Bootstrap, and it helps us actually create responsive layouts where the division of space might change depending on a screen size. We've seen this before, but watch as I resize the left and right little sidebars go away. Well, they don't disappear, but they move down below, and things completely shift around depending on the screen size. So the grid system works upon a couple of really important concepts, and the first thing you have to understand is that it only works inside of a container. So we have to have a container or more than one container on a page, but there's got to be a container class anytime we want to use the grid. The next thing you need to know is that we need to create a row using the class of row. So nice and easy. I've got a new pretty empty HTML document. I have Bootstrap included. I have a container, and I have a heading here. Now I'm going to add a row. So div with the class of row. Now that's not going to do much for me at all, but my content will go in here. And this is the most important piece to understand. Every row in Bootstrap has 12 units of space to divvy up. So 12 units. So if we have 3 equal columns like we have here, this gets 4, this gets 4, and this gets 4. If we had something else like 50%, 50%, this is 6 units and this is 6. Or we can have different layouts, right, where this takes up a lot more space. Or something like this, where we have 8 and 4. But the total is always 12 units. Okay? So the next thing to know is that we need to create columns in our row. So every piece that we want to divvy up in a given row is going to be a column. There are a couple different classes that we'll see, but they all start with COL. So just as an example, COL SM4, column 4, or just col SM. These are all column classes. They begin with COL. All right. So I'm going to show you the first most basic way of doing this, of dividing up space, is using classes, COL dash, and then a number. So if I want 50% and 50%, if I have 12 units, I'll do COL 6 and COL 6. I'm going to add some text in here. I am 50%, or why don't I do 6 units? And I'm going to give it a background so we can see it. BG, this is one of those Bootstrap utility classes. How about success? And I'm going to refresh the page. Okay, so this is taking up 50% of our container of the row. Now let's do another one here. BG info. It's also 6 units. There we go. So that's all 12 units. Now I could shift this around. I'm not going to change my text right away, but I'll change the class names. What if I did 4 and 8? Okay, let me do a little bit higher contrast. Why don't I do danger? There we go. So this is 4 and this is 8. Or I could do 2. And if I just did 2 and 8, we're going to have extra space over here that's not being used, which is fine. We'll talk more about what we do with extra space and if we can center things and add that space between our different columns. But you can see now I've got 2 and 8. I could add another one that's 2 units at the end. So this still adds up to 12. So we'd have 2 sides, 2, 8, and 2. So I could have another row down below and have something entirely different. A row is just 12 units going across the screen, and I can divide it up however I want. So let's do this one as, what do we have, 2, 8, and 2. Why don't I do, let me just change this, 2, 8, and 2. How about I do 3, and then 6, and 3. So 3, 6, 3. And that still adds up to 12. Okay, let's take a look. There we go. So I'm 3 units, I'm 6 units, I'm 3 units. Very ugly, but we can put whatever content we want inside of these columns instead of just a background color and text. We can put form elements if we want a nice form that we can lay out. We can put images. We can put other components we have yet to see, things like cards. I'm just illustrating the basic concepts. Now we can actually even get a little bit lazier. If we want equally sized columns, we can just use the class of column, C-O-L, col. So if there's 2 of them, they will split the space, 6 and 6. If there's 3, they split the space, 4, 4, 4. It will automatically figure out how much space each one needs. So let's do another example here. We'll just do COL, COL. Why don't we just do 2 to start? And I'm just going to say I am auto-sized. Just copy that. And I just gave them 2 different background colors. I'll refresh. And there we go. They split up that space evenly. Now if I double the number of them, they still share that space. So we've got, 3, 3, 3, and 3. That's just all done automatically. So that's the basic idea, the basic principle here. Now what's cool is that I can actually call one of these out and give it a particular width or a particular size. Like, how about column 9? So this one, I'm saying, don't auto-size, you are 9. And the others need to figure out how to share the space after it or around it. And so that's what we end up with here. This one takes up 8. And then what do we have left? Or no, it takes up 9, sorry. We've got 3 units left, so we've got 1, 1, and 1. Notice the height, right? My text is not responsive in any way, so everything's stacking inside, and so this individual row is taller, but the other ones do that too once we get to a much smaller size. But that has nothing to do with what I just did, other than the fact that I took up a lot of space. So that just shows we can do a mixture of auto-sized. Let's do something a bit more manageable. How about 5 here? And I'll get rid of this one here. So we've got 5 and then 2 auto-sized ones. Okay, let's switch it up just a tiny bit. Let's go with maybe, I don't know, how about 8 here? And then we'll get rid of that last one. Refresh, and you'll see that these 2 resize automatically to share the leftover space. All right, so to recap some of the basics here, you need to have a container. Now that container can also be a fluid container, which is a full width container. We can nest containers inside of containers. I'll just show that very quickly. Do another container here around this one row. And it gets a little bit of margin on the sides, and that's kind of all there is to it, right? Containers aren't beautiful elements, but they're essential for all of this to work. And then we create our rows. And a row is just something with the class of row, typically a div, could be a section or something like that. It doesn't really represent anything itself. It's just there to help spread out or structure the content or lay it out is a better way of putting it. And we have 12 units within each row, and we can divide those up however we want. We call dash some number to create our column sizes, or just call to create an automatically or auto-sized column that will share the space that is left over if we have some already divvied up like I do right here. So next up, we'll see how to make this responsive.